Hello and welcome to Entirely English, the online English school for people who want to develop their English abilities, particularly those from foreign lands, and the YouTube channel designed to help people understand the British culture, our customs, traditions and peculiarities. So if you're here for the first time, welcome. If you're a returning visitor, very welcome indeed. And a big welcome to Stuart, our newest subscriber. Welcome, Stuart. It's really good to see you here. Do pop some information in the comments. Let us know who you are, where you are, and what you're interested in. Perhaps you have some questions. That's what we've been looking at in this series of videos, are questions that people have for the British or about the British. And we started in our last session looking at a Reddit discussion. Now, I think I made a mistake with this one. They tended to be more focused on ridiculous questions people have been asked, or questions people thought were ridiculous. And there was a lot of emphasis on Americans. So I've had a quick look at the next part of that page, and there are a lot more American things. We are going to skip over those and skip over most of the things that aren't questions, that are just statements of silly situations, etc. So in the video, you might see some cuts where I'll be going, they won't be very well edited together, or bits where the page scrolls really quickly, and that's just me speeding up the video. So please excuse those. All right, let's get into our video of questions British people have been asked, or questions about British people.
Okay, the first one is by an American. So let's see. I'm American but live in the UK. An old work colleague who I hadn't seen in 10 plus years messaged me to say she was going to visit England for the first time and wanted to know if the English still dress for dinner. I told her to dress normal and it's not just one big Downton Abbey set. Yeah, if you live in another country and you watch things like Upstairs, Downstairs, Downton Abbey, Jeeves and Wooster, those sort of historical dramas, you might get this idea, but in common everyday Britain, no, we don't dress for dinner. Unless you're in one of those big manor houses at a dinner party, or you're going to the Brits, for example, then you would dress up, but not everyday normal things. The question I got asked once in the Middle East was why we let America have independence. All I could say is that we were fighting the French at the time and couldn't be asked to keep the colony as it wasn't very important. This is true. The American War of Independence was just unimportant to us. We fought it for a while, but we were having a war with France at the time. The French were also attacking the northern part of America, and that's why the Americans had to pay taxes. Before that, they'd had no tax. They were supported by the British. Equipment and food and everything was sent out there to help them get established. When the war started to drain our resources, we said we needed them to pay taxes to start returning some of the money that had been invested so we could fight the French and afford to send soldiers to America, because we had outposts there with British soldiers fighting to protect the settlers. That's why they had to pay taxes. And they still owe us those taxes. It's about time Trump paid up. Anyway, said this wasn't going to be an American slagging off thing, so let's continue. Skipping forward. I was talking to a Russian guy who simply could not comprehend the fact that I wasn't interested in football. Now, people have this idea that all the British are interested in football. Not so. Personally, I hate it. I think the whole thing is overrated. The people are overpaid. Sport is boring. And the people who go around chanting their football teams' anthems or whatever need their brains examined. But that's my opinion, my personal opinion. So not all British like football. Oh man, I have zero interest in football team and have been interrogated about First Division teams and game taxes in remote Central African villages. Yeah, it's all over the world. People think we like football. Everybody in Britain is obsessed with football. So, watching GoldenEye in a cinema in Antigua about 25 years ago, got asked by two Americans whether we had James Bond in the UK. Almost had a strong... Sorry, I saw Antigua. I thought it would be a foreign one. Yes, we have James Bond in Britain. He is the British secret agent. I am from Edinburgh. In about 1980, I was in Saudi Arabia. The guy I was talking to asked how I had managed to travel there, as he was under the impression that Scotland did not have airports. He was English, by the way. Okay, so yes, in Britain we have stupid people as well. Maybe people still think that Scotland is full of wild haggis running around the Highlands and people in kilts and blue faces. It is a developed country. Edinburgh was cultural capital of Europe at one point, so I told a classmate I was going to Scotland on holiday in about 1993, and they got a copy of the TV guide out of their bag and asked if I needed anything to be taped, because they don't have television in Scotland, apparently. Yes, they do. See, even English people could be dumb. A couple that spring to mind: is London a real place or just a generic film set to illustrate London? If it was a film set to illustrate London, then London would have to be a real place. That is just weird. Holding up a packet of biscuits. Excuse me, are these for stomach complaints? I beg your pardon. Well, they're called digestives. Me, with my best Cockney voice. Sure, mate, take 2 with tea, 3 times a day. That'll sort you right out, sunshine. Actually, it's not such a stupid question. Digestive biscuits were originally designed to help people's digestion. They are very tasty, dipped in a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, or with a bit of butter and cheese on top. They make a very nice snack. They're delicious, but they were originally designed to help your digestion. Someone, doesn't say, but they're Americans, so let's presume they're not. Someone asked if Scotland was near New Zealand, which is probably the single furthest landmass from Scotland on the entire planet. Okay, so we talked before, Britain is England, Wales, Scotland. And in the Northern Hemisphere. In Turkey, we were asked if we were from England or Britain. They didn't understand our reply. Okay, maybe they did. Maybe they're just being polite. You know, England is part of Britain, the 3 parts, as I've discussed. But sometimes you'll get things like on the news when Andy Murray wins Wimbledon. They're like, oh, the great British player who won Wimbledon. First British player to win in so many years. If he loses, they say, oh dear, the Scotsman lost. You know, you're British when you're winning, you're Scottish or Welsh when you lose. I was in Canada some years back and had been chatting to a friendly waiter in a restaurant for a while in my obviously English accent. Eventually he asked, whereabouts are you from? I replied that I lived just outside London, and he replied, without joking, London, Ontario? Canadians are lovely though. They are. They're really nice people. Do you like the Beatles? It's another thing. People assume you like the Beatles like they think you like football. It's another thing I cannot stand. To me, those two things could be obliterated from history and the world would be a much better place. I was there around the time that documentary came out, and all the Americans I interacted with asked about the Beatles. That's interesting, actually, because I saw, what do they call it, a reaction video where this group of 4 Americans were watching a video about things and people that were British, like actors like Tom Holland, that they think are American, but that's just because they're good actors. And these people's minds were blown when they learned the Beatles were British. They believed that them and the Rolling Stones were American. Anyway, that's, again, just looking at America. Let's move on. Reeling off places on a UK Monopoly board and asking me if I lived there. Okay, reeling off means going through a list very quickly, like, do you live here? Did you live here? Did you live here? Did you live here? Going around the board. I can't actually remember any of the places on a Monopoly board because it's something else I don't like very much. But I don't think that's a bad question. If they know you lived in London and they got this virtual map of London, why not? Why not? Like, do you know this place? I think if I was playing Monopoly in Germany, for example, on a German boards, I might say. Dusseldorf, have you ever been there? Yeah, why not? I am from London, and the only places my family have ever lived that are on a Monopoly board are the two cheapest ones, Old Kent Road and Whitechapel. Actually, Whitechapel's becoming quite expensive now. Having lunch with a farming hunting family in South Africa, and the wife asked if I'd met the Queen. She was pretty made up when I said yes. She'd made about an 8-kilometre round trip to buy English tea for our visit. I must have drank about 2 gallons of the stuff. I didn't have the heart to tell her that I normally only drink strong black coffee. Couple of things to pick out there. Firstly, very British thing. This person has gone to a lot of effort on your behalf, so you show your appreciation. I don't drink tea either. I don't like the stuff. Again, something people assume British do. I'm not keen on tea. But if somebody went to that trouble, I would spend all the weekend drinking tea with them because I know the effort they've done. It's a consideration thing. Watch the videos about manners. And the other thing here is that even if you hadn't met the Queen, you could see this woman was really interested. You would find some story to tell her. Like, I haven't met her, but I was in London at the time of her Silver Jubilee, and the crowds were, you react to what they're interested in. Can you say bottle of water? Yeah, this is something I think Americans find amusing because of that London area where they don't pronounce their T's. They say bottle of water, bottle of water, bottle of water, bottle of water, instead of bottle of water, which is kind of amusing when you think they say internet instead of internet. The T is a very important letter. Much more, T, the letter is much more important than T, the drink. An American, okay, this is an American one, but I'm going to mention it because there's a couple of interesting things here. An American once asked me if we had seatbelts in England, also wanted to know how we get our groceries. Now this is interesting because it touches on a couple of British things. Yes, we have seatbelts, it's the law, you have to wear them. Came in about 1990, in the 90s, I think. I don't know who invented them, they've been around for centuries, so. Also want to know about the groceries, and this is a fair question as well because we can walk to our shops, whereas I understand from videos that in America they only drive to the shops, they very rarely walk anywhere. And it is the 21st century, so yes, we do have online groceries. Order it from an online website and get it delivered, or phone apps, I suppose. Again, something I'm not very familiar with, but yeah. They're not presuming we have to go out to the farm and dig our own things. Okay, not completely related, but I'm English but lived in West Africa for 3 years. As a child, when I told people this around 80% of the time, their question is, was it hot? The force of my face palm could behead a wildebeest. Lol, was it though? Yeah, it's one of those things that like people say, does it rain all the time in Britain? Is it always foggy in London? These sort of stereotype things. It's hard to get away from them. But no, it doesn't rain all the time in Britain. No, we very rarely have a London fog because that is history. That is back to industrial times. A guy from Spain tried to convince me that London is a country and Scotland doesn't exist. He was dead serious. Okay, I don't know where that sort of idea comes from. London is big, not as big as a country. Scotland does exist, and it has television and airports and all of that sort of stuff. Well, this is from an American. It's quite interesting. As an American, I don't know if I should laugh or cry at these comments. Lol. I once told a co-worker about visiting England. She asked me if I spoke their language. I simply said yes. I also had a friend from England whose family visited one summer. Her mother was amazed we had cars in Minnesota. She thought we were still like Little House on the Prairie. I told her summer is far too hot to wear long dresses and bonnets. We save those for winter. Okay, as I've said before, there are stupid people in Britain as well. And they should know better, because we have films from America, we have television shows from America. We know you drive everywhere. Do you know George Jones? He's from London too. I think I said in the previous video, this is a fair question. If I met you and you said, I'm from Dnipropetrovsk, I'd say, oh, do you know Anna Slushik? Because she's from that city as well. And there is a possibility. It might be remote, but there is a possibility. If you said, I'm from the Southern Hemisphere, and I said, do you know Mrs. Willis? Then, the possibility is minute there. But a small country like Britain, or a town, or a city, why not ask? I think making it out to be a joke that people ask these questions is unfair. That's another one. Do you celebrate Thanksgiving in the UK? I told them we did, but on 4th of July. Didn't sink in while I was with him. Hopefully he did it afterwards. Okay, this is a reference to celebrating American independence. We celebrate them going. You ever noticed that the Americans changed the date system? So they say like October 5th instead of 5th of October. But they do say 4th of July, not July 4th. Think about that one. Okay, so this is a long one from somebody who used to live in France. I used to live in France, not as cool or as exotic as it sounds. My mum moved us there when I was 7, and we stayed until I was 19. So I got a lot of stupid questions from French people. Here are the highlights. Have you ever met the Queen? Obviously. I was once asked, in all seriousness, if cows exist in England. Yep. French people seem fully convinced that it constantly rains in England and would accuse me of lying when I said that the weather in England was almost the same as it was in France. It used to rain so much where I lived that we'd frequently have roof leaks. Yeah, we're on the same line of latitude. We're pretty much the same part of the planet. And just as the south of France has lots of sunshine, the south of England gets more sunshine than the north. This entire idea that it rains all the time in England and that London is foggy should be dispelled by now. 21st century people should know. One of my French school friends asked me how come I understood United Statesian. I asked her to clarify, and she fully thought that the UK and the US spoke entirely separate languages. Okay, never mind. So what part of England is Wales from? Should be Wales in, actually. And we talked about the difference there before in America. I live in England. Oh, you're from Europe. You eat a horse, right? They do eat horse in France. Most of the European countries don't touch it, I believe. Britain definitely does not eat horse. But like this other person replies, not on purpose. There have been cases of sort of sneaking horse meat into the beef burgers. And there's big fury about that. Do you have zoos in England? Yes, we do. I was tempted to say that we probably had the first zoo in the world, but I think the first one was in Egypt. So I'm not going to say that. Okay, it's an American one again, but it's an interesting one. I have a few favourites. It says, during a conversation about Native Americans, used to be Indians, do you have, like, native people in England? Yes. What language do they speak? Well, they speak English now. And native people, that would be going back to the Picts. Actually, when you look at the history of Britain, you wonder if there were any native people here originally, because it just seems like we're invaded all the time. And what we have now is this growth, this development from it.
Okay, this discussion is going on too long. I have to cut the video again, so this is going to be a 3-parter. Sorry about that. But I'll finish this part by referring to a question or an inquiry that one of my Finnish students had. And he asked me, what was chit-chat? And he didn't mean, what does the word mean? He understands conversation and talking. But in his culture, he didn't understand this idea of people talking about nothing important. So chit-chat is when you see your neighbour and you say, hi, how are you? How are the flowers? lovely weather we've been having. It's just this kind of casual thing to make a connection with somebody without being too important. Okay, so I don't know if you don't have chit chat in your culture like this Finnish gentleman. Maybe it's just too difficult to understand if you're not that interested in keeping close connections with people. But anyway, tell me in the comments below, do you have chit chat in your culture, in your language? Do you chat about insignificant things just to make a connection with your neighbours or colleagues? And any other comments, pop them below. Do remember to like this video if you've enjoyed it. Do subscribe if you want to stay up to date. And if you can, share the video with somebody who you think would be interested in this. And I'll see you for the third part very soon. Bye bye.